We have more questions?
Yes.
There's a
I
lot.
don't want to Oh, there's one there. Awkward. Never mind. So Ross actually stole my question, but I have others. I think it's really important because much as there are a lot of things that are really exciting about every single portfolio, unfortunately on the SRC you spend a lot of time looking at proposals, and I think it's really important to know how meetings work in that sense. Also, I would encourage those of you who haven't been to a meeting this year yet that you can come tonight. We have one at 9. It'll be super exciting. Okay, so my question is going to put you on the spot somewhat, and I would hope I'll just ask for your honesty, and if you can, that would be great. I would like you to put up your hand if you voted in the January SRC executive elections. So statistically, you are not quite being truthful. I think that this is a big issue, and I think that it's part of a larger issue of SRC engagement, that not everyone votes in the elections, and I think that that's indicative of people not feeling like the SRC maybe represents them, or not caring, or not knowing the candidates, not coming to events like these. But it saddens me that statistically not all of you voted, and yeah, really, anyway, I guess my question is more, how would you engage people to make sure that they vote, and to make sure that you engage them in what's happening with the SRC? Yeah, I mean, I would say specifically those of you maybe who are less familiar with the SRC, or like speaking from your experience of not coming to a lot of meetings or something, like your relationship with the SRC and how you could see that changing.
Let's start in the middle. So with like Sarah or Bria or Leia, and then we'll move that way and we'll come back. I want everyone to like so
Not everyone needs to answer. I mean, if you all want to answer, that's great, but I don't. Yeah.
Should we just pass it around? Celine, upon actually thinking about it, I was not on campus, nor was I accessing my webmail, so I will straight up tell you I did not vote in the elections because I was not able to watch the videos. So there you go. And now everyone else. I think that we have a lot of people who really like their iPhones, and I know this sounds like a weird thing to say, but if we make things, like I know that so far you guys have, but like continuing to make things easy to access on your mobile devices, and maybe creating forums where people can comment on those devices. I know like you always don't want to discourage like taking the face away from comments, but I think it's also something that everyone checks so frequently. It's a lot easier to answer a poll or engage in a non-adversarial discussion in that kind of forum.
So I was under the impression last year of something that I think that a few people who are sitting here right now are still under that impression, and that I realized this year is not actually the case, and that's that the SRC is just a funding body. That's not true, and it was only after going to a number of meetings and hearing people discuss really important things on campus, like the potential of getting an ombudsperson or a number of other things, that I realized that there's like a lot of stuff that the SRC discusses beyond like just proposals, and a lot of the proposals are really super important to the activities that happen on campus. So I think that making sure that people know that is like gonna help people to become engaged, because I know that's why I'm sitting up here now, was that realization.
I just want to say that we probably have a biased sample set from the overall population, considering we're running. So some of us might be more interested in this than others, so we're maybe not statistically lying.
Can I make a comment on that? We
Sure.
can have access to the names of people who voted, and they voted or not. So
Cool.
that's
Okay. I voted. Yeah, I think that getting people involved is a really big issue, but I don't think it's like just this year. It happened last year too. I remember there was a lot of discussion around that kind of thing. And even looking at the turnout here, even though that's not necessarily representative because they're recorded and I know a lot of people that go and watch them after. But I think it's maybe something that you can't necessarily force, maybe be realistic at some point. So some people even here mention that like they have other commitments that, for example, I know people that are really involved in the arts and that's what they think is important. So I think maybe if we can find a way to make the SRC more relevant to them and specific issues. So I know that, for example, the SRC has posted funding, like for like really cool like pie charts and like where the funding went from each meeting and stuff like that. I think that's really good. But if we can maybe make that more not just about funding, but other things too, that seems to be a constant theme this evening as well, is that we're not just a funding body. So if we can make that maybe more published too, I think that could be helpful.
I'm going to be honest, in my first year, I didn't really care about the SRC. I didn't know that I myself had a financial investment in them. I had no idea, and it was, again, through Janely running that I started to be interested in the SRC, and then this year I've paid more attention and I read the emails now, and I think it's just, trying to get the first years as they come in to understand that while we do put proposals forward for the SRC to fund, they also represent you and your interests, and having an interest in the SRC is in your best interest. So, yeah, just making sure that students are aware that their personal, individual opinion and say does count with the SRC. They make a difference, because we're small enough here that is a difference.
So again, a show of hands, how many people voted in the last election? How many people watched every second of every video for those nominations? Keep your hand up. Or you were there in person. Okay, this is not a great example to count you would put your hand down and such, but I believe that people are not voting because they either do not feel invested in the SRC. Celine?
Sorry, it was just the mic being held to you.
Oh.
Was what I was laughing, sorry.
It is either because people do not feel invested in the SRC because they have not been involved in a proposal or in a club that has gone to receive funding from the SRC, or it is that people do not feel informed enough to make a decision and do not want to partake in a popularity contest. So one thing that I would suggest potentially is although online is accessible and that is a strength, it is also a weakness in being highly impersonal, and I believe if there was some sort of system, logistically, I don't know the complications of this, but of knowing who has and who has not voted, and then having actual in-person, check the box, ballot boxes set up in the cafeteria during lunch hours for the week that voting has been open.
Okay, so I'm going to retract my previous arm ascension because I actually don't recall whether or not I did vote, and it would be terribly embarrassing for confirmation of my non-voting to be made public. So, but that being said, I think if that were to be the case, I'd be representative of a big part of the student population. I don't have any actual ways in which we could realistically increase voting turnout. I just think it's kind of a cultural shift that has to occur, and that's something that we all are going to partake in. But I will definitely continue to think about it, because that's the best I can do right now. Thank you.
So I will try and keep this extremely short, and I encourage other candidates to, because we have 5 minutes left and at least 4 more questions, and I would love to hear from them. So I believe democracy is only effective if it's participatory, and I came to Quest to meet people and get the skills to go out in the world and actually I aspire to be part of revolutionizing Canada's democracy, because we have smartphones, they're easy to use, everyone loves them, they don't like paper ballots, people engage when it's easy and it's in their pocket. The Twitter feed is awesome. More of that, more engagement, so people like Quest can actually know what's going on and have their say, even while the meetings are going on. That is one way I think we could really engage participatory democracy at Quest and show the example to Canada of how it can be done.
So I'm reading for Valeria. She says, voter turnout is a reflection of how the student body feels about the SRC. To fix the problem, we need to make sure that whatever the SRC is doing is more in line with the concerns of the students. I doubt that there is any dialogue going on inside the I don't doubt that there is dialogue going on inside the office of the SRC, but if the students aren't getting involved as much as they could be, this means that they clearly don't perceive things to be that way. I think the problem is not with the student body. Again, the problem is with the SRC. If the next SRC will show students that their work matters for student lives at Quest, then I think that we won't have any problems having a better voter turnout. For as long as most of the SRC does is funding proposals put forward by clubs, then it really does not matter who the ministers are or who the executive is. If the SRC will be able to start a long-term dialogue with the student community, if the SRC will be able to take a stronger stance on issues that matter for all of our community, then I am sure that the students will be more responsive. Where is the SRC on issues like sexual assault? Where is SRC on issues like sexism and racism? That's what we need to fix in order to increase voter turnout.
Alright, so I'm going to try to keep my answer short. Basically, I think we need to try to bring the SRC to the students more. I think we've worked on this year with things like the Twitter account, with having meetings in the cafeteria at lunch, but I think this is more that we need to do next year. We need to rearrange meeting times and rearrange the things we talk about at meetings so that students do care and they actually do want to come and hear what we have to say.
I'll try to keep it short as well. So I wanted to correct Daniel. When we had the meeting with Graham, it was only Daniel and I who are looking at the Constitution. And I had actually been part of the student government in my high school. So when I came to Quest, I came determined to be part of it and do everything that I can to help with it. And I remember reading the Constitution and not really knowing what's going on. But at least I tried to look for grammatical errors. But since then, I've tried to become more part of the SRC, from getting proposals funded, but also helping in different other ways. I have really tried to help IDA as much as I could this year with organizing events such as IDA Both and Devon, as well events such as Anything But English Open Mic and other events such as Festival and even international discussion groups. But I also feel like what we were talking about, Twitter feed and also other ways of showing to the student body what's happening in the SRC, what's happening in that classroom during the meetings is very important.
So I actually want to just kind of echo what Valeria said, because that's a lot of why I want to be the Minister of Human Rights. I really intend to make people understand that the SRC can and does change the culture on this campus in the ways that the students want it to be changed, because people need to feel like they have a stake, and a stake in something that actually matters to all of us.
Okay, well, Maya just stole a lot of what I was going to say, as did Valeria. But I think what's really important is that people need to feel like the SRC is representing them. And so a lot of that comes from connection, from things like infographics and Twitter feeds, and knowing that the SRC is constantly working on things and that they're a group that gets things done. But a lot of that also comes from the SRC taking a stand on issues and being a voice that represents the voices that the students are giving to those representatives to amplify. So what we need to do is really represent students and amplify their voices. And if that's being done, they'll be invested in what we're saying, and then they will have greater voter turnout and less apathy towards the SRC.
Yeah, I also don't want to repeat the fact that everyone has been saying a lot of what I'm going to say, but I guess I just did that. So my main issue with the SRC and the reason why I didn't attend a lot of meetings is because I didn't find them to be accessible to what I felt my priorities were as a student. And I also didn't feel like their time was as flexible as I needed it to be. And hopefully a part of the SRC next year, I want to work towards making the SRC more flexible and being a representative of the SRC outside of meeting times and being a resource for students as more than just health and wellness, but of student government in general. And so really making the SRC more accessible, which is pretty much what everyone else has said.
I think it's really interesting talking about voter turnout because we're trying to compare the platform that we have. So how elections at Quest works is that we have posters up. They've been up for 4 days, 5 days, and now we're having a debate. Voting's going to start, and that's it until Friday. I think having something with a bit more structure, possibly having ministers of various positions going from maybe 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, so students have accessibility, because we're on a block plan. We may not have time to allot 4 hours or 3 hours of our day to come and sit here and listen to everybody, and we may not have that same amount of time to watch every single video, so it may turn into a popularity contest. I really did like what Andrew said of having possibly a ballot, so possibly at every building from a specific amount of time throughout a course of a week, or even having more forums for where the candidates can go and talk about what issues they're passionate about and what they aim to do with the SRC next year would be awesome. And I think that's a lot of why people may not vote, is because they don't know what a lot of the candidates stand for, and they don't have that time just based on the block plan.
I love butter chicken and deep fryers. However, most Quest students are involved in many things. They don't necessarily need to go to an SRC meeting and hear the infinite details of how a deep fryer should be purchased or not. If we make the SRC, I don't want to say more relevant in that it's irrelevant, it's not, but to draw out those issues that have been talked about that are pressing in ways that are not necessarily mechanics of more shuttles or things like that, but broader issues such as, for example, what do we want our education to look like? Or how can we talk about racism on campus and things like that. Those are issues that people have opinions about and that matter a lot to them. So I think if we have discussions and really get students to see that the SRC has a broader vision and needs to be more of a student voice on a broader range of issues, students will be a lot more engaged. I would be really excited to be on the SRC because I really support that Graham and Ida want to promote this vision of diversity and of addressing a broader vision for the SRC, and that's one of the main reasons that I wanted to run, in order to bring that broader focus and get students more engaged in deeper issues.
The word apathy was used just a few people ago, and I don't think it's a question of students being apathetic. I think it's a question of giving them a reason to vote. And I think part of how to do that is to look at other schools and see like what are other student councils doing right and what is not going well. Schools that have been around for longer than us, and try to model some things that are going really well with other schools.
It's the job of each minister to engage the students on a personal level, and I think that that is the best way to get students thinking that what they want to do, the SRC can help them to do, and once the SRC helps them, then we will be on their radar and then they'll want to get more involved.
I guess I'm the last person, so I can't add too much more, but I do feel like the SRC and the people who are really involved in it cater to a specific type of person. I don't think that everybody on campus is wants to be involved and are not being engaged in a way that some other people are who are already involved in clubs and are already involved in the SRC, and those are the people who are probably voting because they're being engaged. But I don't think we're doing that great of a job of engaging every student on campus, because I think with a lot of the events that we have, we're catering to specific students. So I think with just broadening the range of activities that we have and the range of things that cater to different students, that'll make people actually notice the SRC and what they're doing, and then therefore care about it.